जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। यमुना तीर वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीर वनचारी। यमुना तीर वनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। जय गौरानिताय 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 जय गौरानिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद।
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शतश्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto number 2, Chapter number 3, Pure Devotional Service, Text number 9. Rajyakamo Manun Devan Rajyakamo Manun Devan Nrittim Tu Abhicharan Yajet Nrittim Tu Abhicharam Chayajet Kama Kamo Yajet Somam Kama Kamo Yajet Somam Akamaha Purusham Param Akama Purusham Param Rajyakamo Manun Devan Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet Kama Kamo Yajet Somam Akama Purusham Param Rajyakamo Manun Devan Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet Kama Kamo Yajet Somam Akama Purusham Param
Rajyakamo Manun Devan
Rajyakamo Manun Devan
Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet
Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet
Kama Kamo Yajet Somam
Kama Kamo Yajet Somam
Akama Purusham Param
Akama Purusham Param
Rajyakamo Manundeva
Rajyakamo Manun Devan
Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet
Nivrittim Tvabicharan Yajet
Kama Kamo Yajet Somam
Kama Kamo Yajet Somam
Akama Purusham Param
Purusham Param Rajyakamo Manum Devan
Rajyakamo Manun Devan
Nrittim Tvabicharan Yajet Kama Kamo Yajet Somam Akamaha Purusham Param
Kama Purusham Param. Word to word meaning. Rajyakamaha. Anyone desiring an empire or kingdom. Manun. The Manus. Semi-incarnations of God. Devan. Demigods. Nrittim, demons, tu, but, abhicharan, desiring victory over the enemy. Yajet, should worship. Kama Kamaha, one who desires sense gratification. Yajet, should worship. Somam, the demigod named Chandra. Akamaha, one who has no material desires to be fulfilled. Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param, the Supreme. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. And one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please repeat this translation. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons, and one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. But one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. For a liberated person, all the enjoyments listed above are considered to be absolutely useless. Only those who are conditioned by the material modes of external nature are captivated by different types of material enjoyment. In other words, the transcendentalist has no material desires to be fulfilled, whereas the materialist has all types of desires to be fulfilled. The Lord has proclaimed that the materialists who desire material enjoyment and thus seek the favor of different demigods, as mentioned above, are not in control of their senses and so give themselves to nonsense. One should therefore not desire any sort of material enjoyment, being sensible enough to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The leaders of nonsensical persons are still more nonsensical because they preach openly and foolishly that one can worship any form of demigod and get the same result. This sort of preaching is not only against the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita or those of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, but is also foolish, just as it is foolish to claim that with the purchase of any travel ticket, one may reach the same destination. No one can reach Bombay from Delhi by purchasing a ticket for Baroda. It is clearly defined herein that persons impregnated with different desires have different modes of worship. But one who has no desire for material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And this worshipping process is called devotional service. Pure devotional service means service to the Lord without any tinge of material desires, including desire for fruitive activity and empiric speculation. For fulfillment of material desires, one may worship the Supreme Lord, but the result of such worship is different, as will be explained in the next verse. Generally, the Lord does not fulfill anyone's material desires for sense enjoyment, but He awards such benedictions to worshippers of the Lord, for they ultimately come to the point of not desiring material enjoyment. The conclusion is that one must minimize the desires for material enjoyment, and for this, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described here as Param, or beyond anything material. Sripada Shankaracharya has also stated, Narayanaha Paro Vyaktat. The Supreme Lord is beyond the material encirclement. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. In these few verses, including this verse and the preceding verse, there are some descriptions given about the worship of the different devatas. And here in this verse today, it is being described that there are two categories of worship. One is the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the other is the worship of the Manus, the worship of the moon, the worship of the demons, that is all personalities other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So two kinds of worship are being recommended here. Categories of worship are being recommended. And in the purport also, Prabhupada is telling that there are two categories of people. One is the sensible people and the other is the nonsensical people. So two categories of worship are being recommended. Two categories of people based on their intelligence is being described here in this purport. And what is the reason for all this? Let us try to understand. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about two kinds of happiness that people desire in this world. All living entities in this world, whoever they may be, whichever religion, whichever caste, whichever species of life they belong to, one common factor is that all of them are seeking happiness. You may be a rich person, you may be a poor person, you may be intelligent, you may not be intelligent, you may be male, you may be female. Whatever we may be, ultimately we are all seeking happiness. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he is categorizing the happiness that we experience into two kinds. First category of happiness, Krishna says, is samsparshaja bhoga. Bhoga means enjoyment. What kind of enjoyment Krishna is talking about? Samsparshaja bhoga means happiness derived by the contact of our senses with the sense objects. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. This is one kind of happiness Krishna is describing. Another kind of happiness which Krishna is describing in the Bhagavad Gita is sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam. What is this happiness? This happiness is not the happiness derived by contact of the senses with the sense objects, but happiness which is beyond our senses, our mind and our intelligence. So two categories of happiness. One happiness which is for the mind, for the senses, for our false identity. This is one category of happiness which Krishna is categorizing as samsparshaja bhoga. And the second category of happiness is sukham atyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam. This happiness is beyond our mind, beyond our senses, beyond our intelligence. So all living entities in this world are trying to aspire for either of these categories of happiness. So the first category of happiness is described here by Srila Prabhupada as material desires. Like here we are seeing one who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire. This is a desire for the body, mind and senses. One who desires victory over an enemy. This is again a desire for body, mind and senses. And one who desires sense gratification. These are again happiness for the body, mind and senses. So for all these kinds of happiness, Prabhupada is categorizing this as material happiness, happiness of a materialist. Now, who is a materialist? Who seeks material happiness? So, this we have to understand that our real identity is we are not these bodies, we are spirit souls. And this entire material world is created to facilitate this samsparshaja bhoga. How we forget our identity that we are spirit soul and try to enjoy happiness. There is a spiritual world and there is the material world. And all living entities, originally we belong to the spiritual world. And we are meant to experience happiness. At one place Prabhupada says, happiness is our constitutional right. We are meant to be eternally happy in the spiritual world. But when we desire to be happy in an unconstitutional manner, then to facilitate that, this entire material world is created. So what is the arrangement that Krishna is making in this material world for our happiness? That he is describing in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, if we look at the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, beginning from verse 10, Krishna says, Saha yagya praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadhvam eshavo swishta kamadhuk. In the beginning of creation, so what is being created here? This material world is being created. Why it is being created? To satisfy all our unconstitutional desires. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generation of men and demigods. So, all the living entities, they are sent to this world and they are either given the position of devatas or there are other living entities. So, all these people are sent to the material world. With what process? Along with sacrifices for Vishnu and blessing them by saying, be you happy by this yajna because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. So, the moment a living entity says that I want to experience happiness independent of Krishna, then a facility is given by creation of this material world. And this kind of happiness only Krishna is describing as samsparshaja bhoga, where a certain body, certain mind, certain senses are given to the spirit soul, and the spirit soul is identifying himself with that mind, body, senses, and trying to increase the enjoyment of this mind, body, and senses. So to do that, what Krishna is doing? He is creating this material world. Now, in this material world, people can enjoy samsparshaja bhoga in 2 different ways. One is that they forget that there are any rules governing this material world, and simply like animals, we just focus on independently gratifying our senses. We see many such people. They are simply trying to satisfy their senses without any understanding about how this material world is working. That is one way by which people engage in samsparshaja bhoga. But the process recommended by Krishna here in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, even for material enjoyment, is what? You be happy by performance of this yajna. Krishna is saying, even if you want to do samsparshaja bhoga, even if you want to enjoy materially, independent of me, still you take this process of yajna. What is this process of yajna? Yajna means you acknowledge that this material world has got a system of universal administration. So you have got some material desires, then you approach the authority for that desire, you perform yajna for that person, and by performing that yajna, your desire will be satisfied. Shri Shri Krishna Rukmani Satyabhama ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So that way you can satisfy your desire. Now what is the difference between these two kinds of material enjoyment? In the first category, a person becomes more and more entangled when he tries to enjoy without propitiating the different devatas to the process of yajna. Prabhupada gives an example to make us understand this. Let us say we are staying here. Now when we are staying here in this city of Chennai, we are using water, we are using electricity, we are using roads, and therefore we are having to pay some taxes, correct? Because all this is being managed by one administration. Now if somebody is only enjoying all this, but he is not paying taxes, what happens to him? The electricity, the water, everything is disconnected. And that person, he cannot enjoy happiness anymore. Similarly, even for enjoying material happiness, we have to acknowledge the source from which these material facilities are being provided. Otherwise, we are coming into this material world to experience some happiness, but even that material happiness we cannot experience without this performance of yajna. So therefore Krishna is telling, in the beginning of this creation, I have sent both generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and bless them by saying, you be happy by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. Then the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, thus nourishing one another, there will reign general prosperity for all. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, supply all necessities to man, but he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So this is the arrangement of this material world. So the demigods also want to enjoy material sense gratification. How that is being facilitated? Because all the other living entities who desire these benefits, they worship these demigods. So the demigods' desire for being very powerful, for being worshipped by so many people, that is being satisfied in this world. At the same time, the desire of so many living entities for material benefits, that is also being satisfied by their worship of the demigods. So that the demigods also want to enjoy independent of the Lord. The living entities also want to enjoy independent of the Lord. And Krishna is sanctioning that. He is making this material world, and in this material world he is sending the demigods and he is sending the living entities also. But those who do not follow the system of yajna, for them even material enjoyment becomes very difficult. But those who follow the system of yajna, they are able to enjoy materially. This samsparshaja bhoga they are able to do as long as they keep performing this process of yajna. But then Prabhupada is calling both these categories of people as nonsensical. Both the worshippers of the devatas and those who want to enjoy materially without worship of the devatas. Both of them he is calling them as nonsensical. Why is it that so? Because the nature of this happiness Krishna describes, this samsparshaja bhoga, is dukkha yonaya evate. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonaya evate. We are thinking that this samsparshaja will give us bhoga, but Krishna is saying it is dukkhayonaya evate. It is the source of all misery. Why it is the source of all misery? Because adyantavanta kaunteya. It has got a beginning and it has got an end. For example, in this verse we are seeing Rajya Kama Manun Devan. If you want a kingdom, you worship Manu. Okay, you will worship Manu, you will get a kingdom. But how can getting a kingdom be a source of misery? Because once you get a kingdom, you will rule the kingdom, you will become so attached to it, you will be enjoying the power. But someday, when your punya is over, somebody else will come and conquer the kingdom. It is a source of misery. Or let us say, even you continue to remain the king, but one day you have to give up this body and die. And that time when you are dying, your separation from the kingdom will be very, very painful for you. Similarly, somebody might want to have victory over his enemies, but such victory also is short-lived. Somebody wants sense gratification, but even the nature of sense gratification, any type of kama, is ultimately dukkha yonaya evate. It is ultimately a source of misery, because body itself is a source of misery. The moment one takes a body, he is subject to birth, disease, old age and death. And these four things, they don't allow us to experience eternal happiness. So therefore Krishna is saying, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means sensible person, intelligent person. Sensible person, he doesn't strive for samsparshaja bhoga. He doesn't strive for samsparshaja bhoga because he knows ultimately all these things are source of misery and suffering. Whether I get kingdom, whether I have victory over my enemies, even if I have unlimited sense gratification, all these things are ultimately sources of misery. So therefore, what is recommended for a sensible person? For a sensible person, what is recommended is akama purusham param, the worship of the Parama Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. So only a person who doesn't have desire for sense gratification, he only can engage himself in an undeviated manner in the worship of the Supreme Lord. Why should he engage himself in the worship of the Supreme Lord, giving up all this material enjoyment? Because Krishna is saying there is another kind of happiness to be experienced. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhigrahyam atindriyam. This happiness is not happiness happiness of the senses with the sense objects. It is not like samsparshaja bhoga. It is another kind of happiness which is not restricted by your body and senses. Sensual happiness is limited, it is conditional, it is restricted. Is it not? How much sensual happiness can a person experience? You can eat 1 rasgulla, 2 rasgulla, 3 rasgulla. After that, you will not want to eat rasgulla. Anything in this material world is like that. So, these senses are restricting our ability to experience happiness. So, Krishna is saying there is another happiness which is unlimited, which you can experience unlimitedly, which is not restricted by your senses. And that happiness is the happiness of associating with Krishna. Sukham atyantikam yattat buddhigrahyam atindriyam. And what happens when one experiences that happiness? He is not disturbed even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. Guru napi na vichalyate. He is not disturbed even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. So in the material world, if somebody is trying for material happiness, what is he trying to do? He is trying to change the situation, external situation. Either by worshipping some devata or without worshipping a devata. But what is the goal? I want to change the external situation so that my senses can be gratified. But we cannot control the external situation beyond a certain point. That is a reality. That is why ultimately all material happiness is a source of suffering. But what is the formula Krishna is giving? You don't try to control the external situation. You don't try to worship some devata and control your external situation. You revive your relationship with me, and no matter whatever the external situation is, you can experience happiness. So people are trying to conquer kingdom, people are trying to desire victory over the enemy, thinking that by achieving all this I will be happy. But the process of Krishna consciousness is, whether you are victorious in battle or not, whether you gain a kingdom or not, you can always be happy. So who is a sensible person? A person who is endeavoring to be happy in all situations, or a person whose happiness is contingent on different situations? Who is a more sensible person? Sensible person is a person who is endeavoring to be happy in all situations. So therefore, Prabhupada in the purport, he is saying that a sensible person is a person who has no material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Nateshu ramate buddhaha. An intelligent person, a sensible person, he never tries to take delight in samsparshaja bhoga. So in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita also, the same point Krishna describes, when he describes who is a Mahatma and who is not a Mahatma. Yes, so this is from the 7th chapter, from the 19th verse to the 24th verse. Krishna is describing about the intelligent person and the non-intelligent person. So in the 19th verse, Krishna says, Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevas sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabaha. After many births, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So, who is actually in knowledge, who is an intelligent person, what does he do? He is surrendering to Krishna. Okay, this is one category of person Krishna is describing. Now, the other category of people Krishna describes, Kamais taistair hritagyana prapadyante anya devataha tam niyamamasthaya prakritya niyata swaya. So what category of people Krishna is describing here? Hritagyana. Hritagyana means whose knowledge or mind is distorted. First we saw people who are full of knowledge. What they are doing? They are surrendering to Krishna. Now Krishna is talking about another category of people whose mind is distorted. Hritagyana. Why their mind is distorted? Kamais taiste hritagyana. Those minds are distorted by material desires. What do? Prapadyante anya devata. They surrender to the other devatas. They don't surrender to Krishna. They surrender to the other devatas. And what do? Tam niyamamasthaya prakritya niyata swaya. They follow particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. Who is facilitating this? That Krishna says in the next verse, Yo yam tanum bhaktaha shraddayarchitum ichchati tasyat tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship the demigods, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to some particular deity. So even our material desires by worshipping the devatas, who is facilitating this? Krishna is only facilitating. Like we saw in the 3rd chapter, in the beginning of creation, Krishna is sending demigods, Krishna is sending living entities, and the faith for the living entities to worship the devatas also, Krishna is only giving. And sataya shraddaya yuktas tasyaradhanam mihate labate cha tatakaman mayaiva vihitan hitan. Endowed with such a faith, he seeks favors of a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So we are thinking by worshipping that devata, I am getting the benefit. But actually, who is the ultimate source of all these benefits? It is Krishna himself. Then here Krishna is saying, Antavantu phalam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedasam devan deva yajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So, there is no doubt at all in what is being told in the Bhagavad Gita. If you worship a devata, the result is different. If you worship Krishna, the result is different. So, Prabhupada in this purport, he has pointed out one point. He says, the leaders of nonsensical persons are still more nonsensical because they preach openly and foolishly that one can worship any form of demigod and get the same result. This sort of preaching is not only against the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita or those of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, but is also foolish, just as it is foolish to claim that with the purchase of any travel ticket, one may reach the same destination. No one can reach Bombay from Delhi by purchasing a ticket for Baroda. It is clearly defined herein that persons impregnated with different desires have different modes of worship, but one who has no desire for material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So you see, there are some people who say any devata you worship, the result is the same. Krishna himself is pointing this out in the Bhagavad Gita, that men of small intelligence worship the demigods. And those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods. But the intelligent people, Bahunam Janmanamante, what do? They surrender to Krishna, and my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is very clear that the result of worship of the devatas is different, and the result of worshipping Krishna is completely different. Those who worship Krishna are considered intelligent or sensible. Those who don't worship Krishna, or those who recommend that you worship other devatas also, you will get the same result as worshipping Krishna, they are categorized as unintelligent or nonsensical. So, many times people say that you are all fanatic people in the Krishna consciousness movement, because you say only you worship Krishna, nobody else. But it is not fanaticism. This is what the Bhagavad Gita is saying, this is what the Bhagavatam is saying. Fanatics are people who don't have a basis for their convictions. They are called fanatics. Religion without philosophy is called sentimentalism or fanaticism. So-called religious people, there are many people, they say, I don't differentiate between Ganesha, Muruga, Indra, Chandra, Krishna. For me, everybody are the same. And they think they are very nice people because they are viewing everybody as the same. But what is the view? What is the use of your opinion? What is the basis of your opinion that everything is the same? That is also fanaticism. when your understanding is not based on any sound philosophy, when your practice of religion is not based on any scripture, that is called fanaticism. So if somebody is saying, I don't differentiate between all gods, for me everybody is one, we should know that person is actually a fanatic. Real person who is not a fanatic is who understands this difference between the Paramapurusha Krishna and the other devatas. So even if somebody is worshipping Brahma or Indra and saying, give me liberation, Brahma and Indra will be surprised. What is this foolish person doing? How can I give liberation? Hiranyakashipu also did tapasya to Brahma and he said, I don't want to die. Brahma said, I myself have to die. I cannot give you liberation. How can I give you eternal life? Why? Because Brahma was a devotee. He understood that, I cannot give this. He knew what his position is. But any nonsensical leader, as Prabhupada is pointing out, they will say, yes, you worship any devata, you can get liberation. This is completely nonsensical because it is not in line with what Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam is saying. And another category of unintelligent person also, Krishna is describing here in the 24th verse. He says, Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyate mam abuddhayaha param bhavam ajananto mamavyam anuttamam. Unintelligent men who know me not think that I have assumed this form and personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. So this category of people who say that you worship any form of the Lord, ultimately the Lord is formless, and this is what you want to realize, are also categorized in the Bhagavad Gita as unintelligent. Why? Because they are thinking originally God is formless. And Krishna also is like one of the many devatas who has assumed a form. This type of understanding also in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly told, is a sign of an unintelligent person. So, unintelligent person are of various categories. First category is those who want to materially enjoy. And in those who want to materially enjoy also, some want to enjoy without worship of the devatas. Some want to enjoy by worshipping the devatas, by the performance of yajna. This is one category of unintelligent people. Another category of unintelligent people is, they don't desire material enjoyment, but they say you worship any devata, either Krishna or any other devata, and ultimately you will realize that God has no form. He is avyakta and you can get liberated. That is another category of unintelligent people. Both of them, Prabhupada says, are nonsensical. Who is the sensible person? One who worships Krishna as the supreme goal of life. He is the truly intelligent person. Then one may ask, okay, if it is truly intelligent to worship Krishna only directly, then why is the Bhagavatam or even the Bhagavad Gita talking about Devata worship? So Prabhupada gives an example to help us understand this. He says that, a person can have so many desires. But the purpose of this material world is to regulate our desires and ultimately come to the point of being free from all material desires. So, better than enjoying materially without any regulation, what is better is to regulated way enjoy in a regulated manner by worship of the devatas. For example, the government has set up so many stores for liquor. The goal of the government is not to make people drink more and more liquor, but it wants to regulate the consumption of liquor. Some people are so addicted to liquor that they cannot live without liquor. But to regulate their habit of drinking liquor, the government is regulating this liquor business. Now, just because government is personally regulating this liquor business, one should not conclude that, see, the government is facilitating this liquor business, so it is good to drink alcohol. That is the incorrect understanding. The purpose for the government to regulate this liquor is to ultimately bring down its consumption, even of people who are addicted to alcohol. Similarly, even though we living entities are addicted to material enjoyment, and we are not sometimes willing to directly surrender to Krishna, for such people this material world is created. For such people this facility is created, that you perform this process of yajna, you worship the different devatas, and over a period of time you slowly come to the understanding about what is the nature of this material happiness, what is this entire system of universal arrangement, so that at least gradually you come to the platform of surrender to Krishna. So, to facilitate these kinds of happiness, the Supreme Lord has created this material world. For samsparshaja bhoga, there is this material world, and for sukham atyantikam yattat, there is the spiritual world. If eternal happiness we have to experience, then that can be experienced in association with Krishna. And that is why Krishna, because he desires our eternal happiness, he is demanding our surrender. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. He is demanding our surrender because he wants us to experience this sukham atyantikam yattat buddhi grahyam atindriyam. And therefore, in this verse also, Krishna is, it is being recommended that one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Akamaha Purusha Param. So this surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what will give us that unlimited spiritual happiness that we are seeking for. So with this we'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.